What's up, homegirls? ¿Qué onda, morras? Buenos días, tardes, o noches, since I don't know when you're listening to this. I hope your day is going good, or at least better than yesterday. Welcome to Te Crees Muy Muy, the podcast para las homegirls who are healing, growing, and figuring life out, sin plan, con flow. I'm your host, aka your Chicana homegirl from Cali, Stephanie, and as always, muchísimas gracias for pressing play and hanging out with me. And your reminder of the day, morra, el tren no se fue, tú vales oro, no migajas. Agárrate las pestañas y vámonos. Now, let's get into it. What's up, homegirls? Welcome to episode 24 of Te Crees Muy Muy podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie. Welcome, bienvenidas. This episode's going to be a good-ass one. I know I always say that, but this episode took a little bit longer than normal because I watched two podcast episodes of two different topics. And even though they were on the shorter side, I took notes and I had my homegirl Claude clean them up for me real quick. I didn't want to be all over the place, so I did a guide, but like I said, it's a little bit more scripted. So let me go ahead and get started. Don't forget to follow the page on IG and TikTok. Also, thank you to everyone who was kind when I posted my intro face video yesterday. It's only available for friends. I didn't want to make it public because that is a boundary I placed for myself. I took off the features to be able to stitch or do a duet. I'm still getting the hang of social media for this podcast. Also, no me quiero dar nada de importancia like that, okay? So when I say this, les pido un favor. With all this being said, I ask of y'all who follow me on TikTok. Yeah, les va like a little fun fact that I think I told you guys this already or in the past. TikTok only allows me to follow 28 people a day. So that's why the followers to friends, it's not the same ratio. So eventually, like every day, le estoy siguiendo 28 people. With that being said, please don't repost the videos where I show my face. Si me hacen el favor, please. I'm working up the courage to eventually make them public. But for now, it is what it is. For those of y'all who listen to this podcast, I don't think necessarily that I have body dysmorphia per se, but I've been through the ringer when it comes to my body and my weight because of the stomach illness that I have. I don't have it in me right now to make my social media, like, I guess, show my face publicly. Let's be real, social media is not a nice place when it comes to women sometimes, and then being a woman of color, and on top of that, I'm fat. So yeah, no thanks. I'm good. So let me keep working on it on my own pace. But anyways, damn, that was a long ass disclaimer. Ahí les voy. Anyways, this episode is going to be about los mini griefs we carry for the lives we didn't choose, las cosas we robbed ourselves of without even realizing it, and how low frustration is actually the signal pointing us back to ourselves. This episode was inspired by two recent short podcasts que encontré online. One of them is from the duo called Se Regalan Dudas with Ashley and Lety. I've been following that podcast and those girls for a while. This is episode 653. Cómo hacer las paces con la vida que no fue. This episode is completely in Spanish, but still check it out. The conversation touched on so many things. Ashley talked about how many years she robbed herself of not accepting her body. She brought up how heartbreaking it is to see women look at their wedding photos and only see how they don't basically accept themselves in that moment. She also talked about money grief, being irresponsible with money or not saving, and grieving that lost time. Lety talked about how she doesn't want kids or marriage. She has a friend she's known since they were about 10 years old who got married and has kids. They talk a couple times a year, but they're still really close friends. Lety reflected on how her friend sometimes wonders what life would without marriage and kids have looked like, kind of close to like what Lety's life would look like. And obviously Lety wonders the same thing, vice versa. The point being that no matter what path you choose, there's always a version of other life you wondered about. It's not about which one's better, it's about perspective. I think this ties into what I always talked about, The Power of Choice and Perspective from episode 2. Check it out. It's available. Originally, when I started this podcast, it was meant for, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. Cuando empecé this podcast, it was meant for 35 plus single Latinas who don't have kids, are single, living and grieving at the same time. I know that's a heavy feeling to see people around you get married and you want it, or maybe you don't want it anymore, but are not given the space to talk about it because older generations just don't understand that feeling of not wanting that for yourself. Or maybe you're the only one in your family or friend group who is single. Then I got some DMs saying that why only 35 plus, because there was other Latinas who were younger or older who were already moms, married with children or married, but could relate to what I was saying. So I switched it to first Gen Latina daughters. I told y'all there was no structure to this, so my bad. So when Ashley started talking about money and body image, I was like, damn, there it is. I always say that I don't want to come off like I'm bashing our parents for the things we didn't know or weren't taught. We're adults and we have to take the responsibility for the things we did and didn't do, say and didn't say. I don't know about y'all, but my parents really didn't teach me about money. My mom, around 16, I think, or maybe even 18 years old, let me borrow her credit card and told me, don't overuse it and pay it back. And that was it. Now that I'm older, I know I have a messed up relationship with money. I don't overspend because I turned off overdraft, so si no pasa la tarjeta no lo pasa. And for some months, I have been budgeting off and on. But savings and doing all that, no, not really. And the crazy part is that I'm not alone. Most Americans don't have 1K saved for an emergency. I had seen that online, supposedly your relationship with money mirrors the relationship you have with food. And low-key, I think I maybe kind of believe that. Back to weight and self-image. Y'all know how much money the health industry makes off of insecurities? Que el Botox, fillers, BBLs, esto y lo otro. I don't judge anyone for getting surgeries or enhancements. We have spent so much time talking shit to ourselves about how ugly, how fat, how skinny, how dark, how light we are. I've been through so much with this illness, y'all. I was 265 pounds in 2016. I did carb cycling and went to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, and I lost about 65 pounds on my own. That brought me basically to November. Then in November, I went to Mexico City and I got sick off the water. The following February or March of 2017, I got hella sick out of nowhere. And I've talked about this before. Lost my appetite. I didn't eat for about 40 days. I wasn't throwing up or anything like that. I was just nauseous. No tenía hambre. I basically lost my hunger cues. I had a full-time job and I had to go part-time. And y'all, I'm in the Bay Area, okay? So I went to different doctors. I went to a motility clinics. I did acupuncture with Chinese herbs, and I even tried new things like new age things, and I 1000% regret doing the new age things that I did. Anyways, I went from 200 pounds to about 165 or 155 or so in less than 2 months. Real talk, I was losing about a pound a day. I was so thin, y'all, that a football jersey from like the youth section from Ross or Marshalls me quedaba. I was a small in when it came to Old Navy and their leggings. I was a small. I got to that size. Ever since then, my digestive system has not been the same. The amount of times I was so upset with my body, asking it why it didn't work, what was going on. I was super frustrated because the doctors were not giving me any like answers, right? I did a whole bunch of crazy ass tests that I didn't even know existed. I ballooned back up eventually to 200 pounds fast. Then I lost some weight and then I gained, and I've been up and down ever since. But let me go back a little bit. I've been yo-yo dieting off and on since I was about 16 years old, y'all. Next January, I'm going to be 40. The events that I didn't go to, always wearing black and sweats and sweaters because it was the only thing I wanted to wear or could wear at the time. And obviously, el color negro, right? It'd be butt-ass hot and yo con sweaters. and sweatpants. The times I didn't even bother to date because I felt so low. Once I got into my 20s, it was a hot mess, y'all, when it came to dating and other pendejadas. Y'all, men can be something else when you're fat. Those are stories for another day. But here's a little fun fact, and I talked about this before. I got banned from eHarmony in my 20s, y'all. But anyways, yeah, that's a story for another day as well. And look, a lot of our moms and tias were on diets too when we were younger, or even hell, even at this point right now. We were never really taught about body image or our relationship with food. Fix your relationship with food first, then lose the weight if you want to, but lose the weight, y'all, for the right reasons. El pan is not the enemy, okay? Imagine if we took the time to heal ourselves when it comes to food and money. I know it's a privilege to go to therapy, to be able to afford good quality food, or shit, even at this point, y'all, to be able to afford groceries in general. There's this girl I follow. She's Mexican. She goes by Acuerpada on IG. Her name is Ana Pau Molina, and I believe she's a psychologist. And another lady named Ana Arizmendi. She has a YouTube channel called Psicoalimentación. Check them both out. Both of them are, just checked on Instagram. Both of them are psychologists. And there's also a lady, she may not be everyone's cup of tea because she gives a lot of perspectives and men tend to attack her. And a lot of people disagree with her because they say that she's promoting obesity, which I don't think it's true. She puts a lot of things in perspective, even if you don't agree with her. I met with her once on Zoom because I was going to start talking to her. I had an appointment, but then I lost my job, so I couldn't afford to go to her. Her name is Raquel Lobaton. Her last name is L as in Lucy, O as in orange, B as in boy, A as in apple, T as in Tom, O as in orange, N as in Nancy. So Raquel Lobaton. Anyways, how about instead of going ham and cutting out carbs, you start by adding a veggie? Instead of buying a large Coke with your McDonald's order, you go down a size to a medium or even small. Little things like that, y'all, that are sustainable. You go from eating a large quantity of food to eating one boring ass salad with 40 ounces of protein and nothing else. Well, no shit, not even me. 2 hours later, I'm going to be hungry. You give yourself a month or even 2 weeks to go on these crazy ass diets, and then you can't hang with, or you do, pero andas bien hambriada. You lose the weight or a little bit. The event passes or the anniversary hits, you got into the dress or whatever you wanted to get into, y ahí se acabó. But guess what? Here comes another event or something else, right? Que hueva, you guys. Learn from me, y'all. The very last time I tried a diet, I was so stressed out trying to figure out if I should get el pollo loco or not because of the carbs, rice, beans, and corn. I had a job out in the cuts and I had to drive out of the building to eventually get something to eat. And that was the only thing that was available. And that or McDonald's. And obviously I didn't want chicken nuggets at the time. So yeah, don't do that, y'all. Honestly, the main thread that runs through everything I talk about on this podcast, no matter the topic, is la frustración. The other video that I watched that was actually shorter than the other one, this one's about under 16 minutes. It's on YouTube in Spanish, again, by Doctora Natalia Ruiz de Otero. Episode 14, La frustración, de la rigidez mental al cambio. Y'all, it's so simple but easier said than done. She drops gems, and a lot of what she says, I can apply it to everyday life, and I think you guys can too. What she says, I'm going to start applying it to this podcast because it's about expectations, and I have to, in a way, understand how to process when things don't go the way that I thought they should go. So see, here there's another should. Ready? Ahí les va. Frustration is an emotion that stems from anger, which is a primary emotion. It arises when we feel that our expectations have fallen short of reality. I expected something and reality fell short of what I imagined. Its opposite would be happiness, which comes from feeling that reality exceeded my expectations. Frustration occurs when we focus much more on the problem than on the solution. This applies to us when we're trying to set boundaries with our people. Y'all, we're not responsible for our parents' health, attitude, or beliefs. Once again, No somos responsable for our parents' health, attitude, or beliefs. We can say something, but if they don't care or they don't see anything wrong with their behavior, that's when we have to learn to reevaluate the situation, say our piece and move on, or give ourselves some space, go outside and leave the area if you're able to. I know it's easier said than done because these are our loved ones, these are our parents or siblings. But if you're not speaking up or doing what you said you wanted to do, at some point you're going to start having resentment towards your people and be mad at yourself porque no te defendiste. And it's not even about fighting or accusing people. It's just learning how to do the boundaries, y'all. I'm going to say this knowing it's not this simple, okay? Ojo, some of y'all want to date but won't make a profile. So you're frustrated that you don't meet anyone. Like, be for real, homegirls, come on. Some of y'all are not sure if the person you're seeing or talking to or just normally are dating, not in a relationship yet, is it anymore. You have frustration towards the situation, but won't set a boundary or les da miedo in a sense to speak up, because if you let this person go, you're going to feel alone. Y no te gusta estar sola for whatever reason. Y'all, a lot of the time, men don't give a fuck and they are good at saying what they want through their actions, pero ustedes se hacen patas. I had a friendship and he had no issue setting boundaries and saying what he did and didn't want, friendship-wise, obviously. And I was over here trying to say it slowly, be gentle. Not that I was ever going to be mean towards this person or whatever, but sometimes we let frustration sit there and we don't act, or we give up really quickly because we can't tolerate it. That goes for dreams, jobs, health, relationships. Pero ojo, I'm not saying strain your mental health to stay somewhere or keep someone or something. If you have to go because it's time, then do it. But also, is it that you're truly over it and can't do it anymore? Or is it just frustration because it's new or it's not going the way you thought? The last part applies to me. Ahí les va. I had a series in my early posting days called Fixing My Desmadre. It's still up. But I left it alone because it wasn't getting traction. I should have kept it going, but I didn't give it enough time, and I thought y'all didn't care. I also made a freebie for job hunters, tips and tricks, because as y'all know, or maybe you don't, depending where you're meeting me for the first time or where in this journey you're at, I guess you could say with me, right? I used to be a recruiter. I used to work in the staffing industry for about, let's just say 10 years, give or take, altogether. A few people got it, and then I just took it off. I still have it, but it's not available on my beacon. So if you're interested, DM me y te lo mando por email. The main lesson that I learned is I tried to be helpful, but none of y'all were asking me for tips and tricks. And I went out of my way to create something that nobody asked for. I felt frustrated when it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Y lo quité. I was disappointed, but then I reframed it as a lesson learned. It didn't hit, or maybe my audience, you guys, wasn't going to be clicking links. That's more of an Instagram type of thing. Tolerance for frustration is the ability to recover from feeling of failure, rejection, or insignificance each time things don't go as expected. It is the ability to try again without losing motivation or purpose. Right? And a lot of these things that I'm getting kind of technical or from the actual psychologist, what she says in the video. She says it in Spanish, but I use Google Translate because no quiero que se pierda in like translation. But at the same time, if it didn't make sense, then I would like tweak it or whatever, right? That's why I'm saying you guys have to watch the video as well. When it comes to being first gen, I think a lot of us, not all, but a lot of us somos bien rígidas when it comes to our way of thinking. But eventually we tend to unlearn some of it, but not all. Latinos, not all, but some, tend to be negative, pessimistic, and let's keep it real, a bunch of haters. Hence, te crees muy muy. When we do something different from what our parents or family members did, whether here in the US or back in Latin America, the judgment comes. No te apoyan, they criticize you, but in some areas they will support you, the areas that they don't think are stupid. This is where we have to break the cycle of mental rigidity. And remember, this comes from a mental health professional. She does give a disclaimer at the beginning of her video or show, whatever. Mental rigidity, I can't even say it, is a mind that discriminates against everything different, that judges before understanding another person's inner world. We are more rigid than we think. Just look at our tolerance for difference. Mental rigidity breeds fear of thinking differently, of losing identity, of losing value. Rigidity is born from repetition. Something that used to work no longer does. That's what leads us to therapy. When something stops working, anxiety appears, and that's where the possibility of change opens up. The rigid mind judges, but the flexible mind practices curiosity. Being flexible doesn't mean everything is the same. The flexible mind is committed, but it can detach from its ideas when something profound challenges it. It knows that it's wise to change your mind. It has self-criticism and the capacity for introspection. Rigid minds get more frustrated because they don't want to give up the secondary gains of their symptoms. But frustration actually comes to show us opportunities. Frustration doesn't come to destroy us. It comes to invite us to move more from rigidity to flexibility. And there, even though it hurts, true freedom begins. So that blew my mind when I heard it in Spanish. And then eventually I kept rereading it just to make sure I understood that. And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because that also kind of when you're hella your feelings or you start to ruminate, it's kind of hard to see the big picture. And I think that a lot of us, when we go through frustration, is that we kind of freeze or we get mad or we start to overanalyze or we just give up. That's why I feel like some people say they have a hard time going with the flow or they kind of drown in the frustration. I tend to be some of those people sometimes. I'm going to be honest, and I've talked about this before because I know some people are going to be like, dude, si te causa hella stress or you don't think you're doing a good job, then stop. But that's not really the point. This podcast is teaching me how to be patient. Because for the first time, I'm depending on other people to make something successful in a sense, right? I can make a bomb ass episode, pero I've talked about this before, pero si no les gusta, no les gusta. I can't make you guys listen. I can't make you guys support me. And I don't mean support con dinero. I mean support the podcast and stuff. And that's really hard to do because when you have a regular job, you work as a team and you kind of do depend on each other, right? But there are times that, for example, when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, and I'm not even saying I'm an entrepreneur, that's the risk you take. It's kind of in a way you're dependent on other people's moods, whether they're feeling you or not. And that's a big ass change. And that's something daunting that you really have to think about, right? That's why I believe that the average person only launches 3 podcast episodes and then they stop because it's a long game. So let me get back to this. When you're feeling behind in life, whatever life shoulds you're chasing or feel like you should have right now, this is where rigid minds come into play. I want to say something that may ruffle some feathers or make someone listen feel sad or angry. That's the last thing I want to do, pero aquí les va. Some of us might never get married or have kids or vice versa. That great dream career might look different than planned. Some of us might be moms, or some of us may use that maternal instinct in another way. Some of us may never get married, but live with our soulmates. Some may never get into that dream career, but start their own company and use parts of that degree. Or you work a job, not a career, that lets you do creative stuff on the weekends or 3 times a week at night. And you took that job knowing it gives you that freedom. Yes, it may be a boring job or maybe it pays you low, but that's your trade-off for getting to do those fun things. Learning how to work to live, not live to work. I have many griefs every day, y'all. If I wake up feeling weird or too nauseous, my day in a way is kind of ruined in a sense, and it just is getting started. I won't really eat. Maybe I get a coffee. Maybe I get my little routine in the morning. Maybe I go for a walk. Maybe I don't. I'm fighting for my life, y'all, to stay connected to God. Spiritual laziness, I don't know if that's how you call it, but it's espiritual, is whooping my ass, y'all. Surrendering to God every single day, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is a daily practice for me that doesn't always feel like it's enough. To me, it's a feeling of grief because the illness has taken away. Next year is going to be 10 years of my life. Who knows what I would have accomplished or not, I can't say. And I don't really dwell on that portion. It's just looking like big picture 10 años, right? But very slowly, I've been able to release, aunque a veces sí me cuesta, y'all. When I can't seem to eat the foods I want, or when it comes to putting myself out there with this podcast, because I don't want some guy to come to my page and call me a fat bitch or a torta. I know it hasn't happened, but it's like I'm waiting for it because time and time again, we have seen that for women in general, but for women of color and fat women, it's another layer. And that's messed up because it tends to come from your own people, my fellow Chicanos. Daily mini griefs, letting a bunch of nobodies stop me from fully showing up online. Que pinche mamada, but that's my truth. I've mentioned this before, but imagine when I get back into therapy and being like, hey, give me some tools for my emotional toolbox so that when a guy calls me ugly or fat or una torta, and there's a thread of people chiming in that are agreeing with him and adding things, or they're fighting there in a thread, give me some tools so it doesn't affect me as much. Help me to grow thick skin. Que mamada. Listen to that again. Help me to grow thick skin. Anyways, so here are some tips that the psychologist recommended. Number 1, replace "this has to be this way" with "this is how it is." A rigid mind fights against reality, insisting on how things should be. A flexible mind starts by accepting what is, not because it likes it, but because it understands that only then can it decide with much greater clarity. As long as you keep fighting against what is, you cannot choose freely. Number 2, transform judgment into curiosity. Every time you find yourself thinking this is wrong, ask yourself, what's going on here? Rigidity judges to protect itself, but flexibility is interested in understanding. Curiosity doesn't take away your judgment. It gives you back perspective. Number 3, stop trying to change others and ask yourself, what do I need? A rigid mind wears itself out trying to mold people and situations, while a flexible mind takes responsibility and asks itself, is this enough for me? Can I live with this reality? What decision do I need to make for my peace? Because life isn't a prison. That's where the struggle ends and freedom begins. So, all of this is what I talk about in the journal I made, and that's why I always push it. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's anything in the market for us by us. The link is in my bio. But anyways, as always, I recommend you watch the first video. It doesn't replace... Watch the first video of Se Regalan Dudas, but this one is the second video that I watch. It doesn't replace mental health, and I'm not a mental health professional, obviously. See what applies to you and what doesn't. Expand your mind before judging it, and the fact that it's under 16 minutes, it's pretty good, y'all. The other video, I think, is under 30. Anyways, I hope you guys like this episode. It's organized chaos. I think sometimes I will post my face and hopefully y'all watch the whole thing because my analytics tell me y'all tap out at 12 seconds. Don't forget to follow, like the clips, and subscribe on YouTube or Spotify. The link is in my bio for the journal and the freebie for the boundaries. Remember, Mora, start with yourself when it comes to boundaries. Anyways, I will catch you guys next Monday. Bye.